Welcome to Spirited Straight Talk, the podcast to help you thrive with the help of spirit. I'm Deb Sheppard, psychic medium, spiritual teacher, and author. Each week, I bring new insights to help you heal from loss, connect with spirit, and turn setbacks into triumphs. So let's get started. Well, 2025 has started. And how are you feeling? Are you ramped up, feeling good, feeling like you're in that moment of change, or are you in that place of fear, maybe a little bit of suffering and concerned? Well, welcome to Spirited Straight Talk, and I'm here with my beautiful wife, Dana.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about some foresight, things that I'm going to see, moving forward for 2025, because people are curious, right? They want to know. So she came up with, I don't know, probably 200 questions, 300, I don't know.
Somewhere around there.
And I'm going to intuitively connect with my guides, sort of give my insight on that. And let's see where it goes and where it takes us. So
I think everybody should know that Deb is live channeling these answers, that this has not been something that she's prepared for at all, other than just opening up to the other side and your guides, right?
Yeah. So 99.9% of my practice is all based on connecting with your guides, connecting with my guides. And I think the other thing to understand about working with your guides, it's not about giving you predictions. Mm-hmm. It's putting things together and giving us some tools of how to deal with exactly what things that are going on in our world.
So right? Tools of what's coming up, is that what
you're saying? Yeah, how to respond to that. It's like if I had the ability to get the lottery numbers, things would look different for our life, right? So when people look for predictions, they think we can tell exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. I think if we even look at forecasts, what we look for people that are investors, or people that look for the weather patterns, mm-hmm. It's all where we get our best ideas or predictions to be able to provide people with answers.
Yeah.
And that's the goal today.
But your guides are pretty dang cool.
Oh, they're really good.
They're very good.
Don't trust me, but I do definitely trust them.
Yeah. Well, do you want to just dive in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take me on.
All right. I've looked through these questions. I think the first one I want to dive into, let's go deep first.
Digging deep, get into the weeds.
So on a global scale, how do you feel that leadership around the world, global leadership how is that going to shape up? Where are we moving? Are we moving towards more peace, more division?
I think there's a lot of layers to that. My first thought is the countries that have been sort of in the background, but if you think about Europe, if we think about certain countries that have just kind of done their own thing, mm-hmm. they don't get as involved as our country, America,
like in Australia, or New Zealand,
mm-hmm.
Greenland.
Absolutely, all these other places that have kind of sat back and watched us, and America's been pretty much that leader of how to manage a lot of things. But I think because of our new administration, things are really changing. Mm-hmm. And the first kind of hit I got was there might be where they're going to come into a place of taking their leadership differently and maybe connecting with countries they weren't as strong with. Mm-hmm. And I think they're not going to always, this is what I'm getting right now, not include the USA. They may decide, which is fine.
Yeah.
They may decide to rally together with their own type of leadership of how they want to present things. Because I think what the US is doing is really becoming more of I'm going to use the word isolated country. It's about them. It's about us and them.
Okay.
And so I think we're really separating ourselves from the globe that we used to have been doing for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And so change is always hard. Change is very, very difficult. And I do believe that in certain areas of our world, we do need change, mm-hmm. but it's how we go about it.
Okay.
So what I'm being shown right now is that some of these countries that have sort of sat back and watched, they may become more active in their voice of what they want, how they want to continue, what kind of peace do they want to bring, and what other countries that are struggling or suffering, mm-hmm. how they want to participate. So politically, I think there's going to be a little bit of shift, and the U.S. may want to pay attention to that a little bit, because we have always been a really strong
hold.
We've tried to make those big decisions. And
We've always been the one that has stepped forward. So other
Mhm.
countries are going to participate more equally,
I think, well,
or
equally, or
or
they're gonna maybe show up and represent how they wanna do things, and so
Okay.
maybe they'll give us an idea of how to work together in a different way, whether we see it or acknowledge it or lean into it or say it's a really great idea. I don't think we're gonna acknowledge that, at least in this administration. Um, but I think it will be good for other countries to have more of a voice for themselves. Why
Okay.
not? And I also feel their
Yeah.
economics is gonna change in a way where they're not sitting as being more vulnerable. I feel like they're gonna take a lead to be more visible is the word I'm getting.
Okay. Well, let's go there
Okay.
for economic and financial shifts.
For globally
Are
or the
we
US?
well, let's go the US first. How about that?
Okay. The first image I'm getting is almost a breaking point feeling. And I think there's been economics has been always it's a foundation of this country for sure in all countries. I think what's happening is we're making these major shifts. But are we ready for the major shifts? I don't know if we have the best plan in place
Right.
to be able to make the major changes. So, I think there's a big shock and awe kind of thing going on.
Mhm.
And for most of us, even though we're a drive-through society, we're in America for sure is a country that wants things done quickly.
Yeah.
We're the drive-through,
Right.
let's get it done type of thing. And so, with that said, when major changes are made across the globe, because this is affecting the
The
world,
world, yeah.
people are not sometimes prepared for that.
Right.
And that's when I think people can make some decisions or choices that might not be the best for them because they may be responding to fear
Yeah.
and that knee jerk reaction and the panic. And when we create panic, that's going to be
Chaos.
an issue for a lot of things. I think that creates an instability.
Mhm.
We have some friends that work for the government, several
Yep.
of them,
Yep.
and they've all said, there needs to be change. There's overspending. And I do
Yeah.
agree. I think
Yeah, I do too.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
with any company, any
Mhm.
large organization always needs to relook at their finances and see if they're spending wisely. But when you get it that quickly in a very short amount of time, I think people are not hitting the easy button. They're really hitting the panic button.
Yeah.
So the economics probably will, what I'm getting as a vision here is in the next 12 to 18 months, really shaky ground, just a
Okay.
lot of shake. Either people are going to be, well, we talked about this before. Remember when the pandemic came and everyone was buying toilet paper? There's that panic.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see some of that in the next 12 months for sure. And they're showing me 18 months before people are going to figure out a new plan.
Okay.
Unfortunately, if people are already suffering, that's where my concern comes in because people that are already suffering before a lot of these changes are being made,
Yeah.
what's going to be the ripple effect for all of that?
Yeah.
What I'm getting with the globe, the world, I think there's going to be, of course, certain countries, and I'm not as educated as some people in economics and all these things, but I do read a lot. But when we look at the economics, um, I think um, the word I'm getting is we need to be cautious as a country
Okay.
about how we play in the sandbox with others.
Well,
Because
that's a challenge
it's
right
a
now.
challenge, and because
Yeah.
other countries may start coming together to decide that they don't want to be
Aligned.
or they're feeling bullied or they're feeling whatever those emotions are. Um, the other thing I'm sensing, and this has happened throughout history, is things are changing and what can we get from that?
Mhm.
So sometimes when we have a lot of things that are difficult for a human race,
Mhm.
people will find other avenues. And my sense is that I'm getting is people are going to find another way to navigate what's happening. But I think that's going to take time.
Yeah.
They're giving me that it's going to take like the third year of this administration before things are seeming, I'm going to use the word more normal. What's normal? That's all relative, right?
Right.
So they're showing me what's normal for all these changes that are happening so quickly.
So that means we'll be in chaos, but it'll feel more settled at that
Or
point?
we're going to recognize. So
Okay.
think about when someone from single getting married, or then you have children, or then you get more children, or whatever. You change jobs. We begin to adapt, right? As humans, we
Yeah.
learn to adapt. We all have. So how long is it going to take us to adapt
Okay.
to what is going on? And it really probably depends on how we support each other through that.
Okay.
And I feel like there's just a lot of division now. And so I don't want to go into the division.
Right.
But I think if we look at history, leadership has always been divided.
Right.
I think now, because we have such an ability to know about the news and social media, we're presented with it on a more daily basis if we choose to. The other thing I'm seeing with that, there's going to be another way of people looking at things. Some people are going to they may feel in that fear, and they're going to probably rally around that fear. That's sort of like they're going to feed that energy as a community, which is really interesting. The other part may see things outside, like other countries or other places in the world that live differently. And how do we gather that? And, you and I are very spiritual, not religious, but very spiritual. And so we come from a perspective of, how do we help others heal?
Right.
What are we here to learn? How do we stop suffering? So maybe that's a piece of it. Are people going to become more spiritual or change the way they see things in order for our world to heal? Because it's not just about us, it is about the world.
Yeah.
We touch so many people in the world.
Right. And we talk about the ripple effect all the time. So if there's a lot of people in fear, that's going to ripple too.
And fear creates more fear, which feels like suffering and insecure. So I think when we look at any of our changes in life, the best advice I can give for people that are in fear right now is to lean into what makes you feel safe.
Yeah.
What do you have control of? Because we don't have control what other people do. We only have control of how we respond. So it's, how do you balance what you need in order to feel safe as you step through all these changes that are occurring every day, every single day?
Yeah. So a couple more things on the economy. Do you see any industries that will thrive?
Let me see. They're showing me different industries about what's happening. Okay, so what I'm being shown right now, and I'm going to try to explain this. So right now we're in this place where, there's the bird flu, and where farmers are being affected by the U.S. aid and just a lot of different things. And what happens is there's panic again. We go into the fear place. But what I'm sensing here is, what they're showing me is there's going to be some sort of innovation. Is that how you pronounce it? Innovation that might take place, that's going to come from a different thing, but it's going to take a while. You just had a look on your face.
Is it something that grows out of the ground normally?
Maybe, but we can certainly talk about that too. Something that we've become passionate about. What I'm sensing is that this is interesting. Okay. So people that haven't worked with me before, I get a lot of visuals in my third eye. So I see pictures and feelings, and I begin to interpret them. So it is a complete interpretation. It's not so much someone speaking to me. It is this whole gathering of data. And again, I'm getting the 2 to 3 year mark where there's going to be some hardships here. And there's going to be some panic about, we don't have our normal life. And what happened during COVID, it should have prepared us a little bit of this. Maybe that's one of the reasons COVID came in. I'm not going down that path, but COVID made us all look at life differently. Yeah. We all had to live differently. Kids had to go online for school. There was, we masked everything. We didn't travel the same way. Just everything, the way we went shopping, grocery shopping, everything changed drastically. And we're still coming out of the ashes. Yeah. There are these kids that are, it was down in California, where these kids that were in high school had gone through the pandemic, and then now their schools burned down. And so you think about all their trauma.
Right.
How do they come out of the ashes? Right. So
Well, it's like our little grandbabies. They were pandemic babies, and they didn't
social.
spend a lot of time with kids until they were a few years old. You know,
Yeah.
so they're different. They are
Right.
different. Yeah, it's interesting.
And then you look at how everyone came out of the pandemic. Now, granted, we lost a lot of people, very sad, very devastating for the losses, but there was still never a united front.
Yeah.
There was still division about how everyone believed. But going through it, we all have a mark in history, and all generations have a time in history where they remember, you know, JFK or Vietnam or just different things that happened, you know, the people going to the moon, whatever it is. This is another time in history people will say, do you remember when?
Okay.
What we do with our challenges, just like what happened in COVID, how are you going to respond? So
it's not specific industries, but more.
Yeah, I feel like it's across the board that people are going to have to look at things differently, even, well, because education is being affected, parks and recreation, well, everything is being affected. So, oh, this is what they're showing me. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting.
No, please go ahead.
We're so used to a society that we pick up the phone or we do something, use a computer and get information, that this is going to basically force people to do things in a whole different way that they're not used to, more hands-on.
Really?
Interesting. And here we are coming up with AI.
That was going to be a question.
Okay,
too.
so
Like,
here we
what
have
is that?
AI that's becoming, I think technology is beautiful, but there's also a price with anything that's changed, right?
Right.
So if AI is coming about, but what I'm getting here moving forward is we're going to have to all be more proactive in our choices and how we manage things and be more active in what we're doing. Because we don't like standing in line. How many of us get frustrated standing in line or having anything that takes extra time?
Should I raise my hand now?
Well, I remember when the internet first came in, you had that weird sound and it took forever.
Yeah,
and even
dial
now,
up.
now if we don't get our internet right away,
Like immediately,
we're upset. So this is going to really teach us all about patience, which is not good, especially for the U.S.
I'm scared of that.
Yeah. So again, how are we going to manage it,
Right.
and how are we going to slow down? Because we are a drive-through society, and now things are going to be all delayed.
Okay.
So with all the delays,
why do you think that's happening? Why do you think we're going to be delayed?
okay, the first thing they're showing me is that we're not creating purpose in our actions. I think sometimes we just kind of like do things, we don't really think about what we're doing. If we look about, are we taking time to really get to know people?
Yeah.
Are we getting time to really sit down and have conversations with our family? Are we, is that missing?
Totally. We see it all the time. People don't sit and talk to each other. They sit and stare at their phone.
So is part of this going to cause this other ripple? Because I'm seeing that we're going to have to be waiting.
Okay.
And if we're waiting, what are we going to do with that time? Are we going to be in our technology, or are we going to reconnect?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't expect that to come out.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
Well, I mean, let's go there next then, because
Okay.
that's all about relationships and love. And so energetically,
I'm getting humor, so that's why I just laughed.
With vibrational shifts, is there going to be, like, through COVID, for example?
That's what I was thinking of. That's why I
there were
started laughing.
so many divorces and breakups, but love was found through that too.
Absolutely.
Like, you and I we were close already, but we were so much closer.
Like as thieves.
Yeah. Always. But yeah.
Yeah, I think relationships, and that's what I was laughing about when you asked about relationships, because COVID brought everything to the surface for people that had to be at home.
Yep.
And so when people had to be at home together, everything was being, shown us. Just like, this is where things are, which we can ignore it if it's just for a few hours a day. I think with relationships, okay, this is kind of the direction they're showing me. I've lost relationships because of my political beliefs. And I really, it makes me sad
Yeah.
because it would be nice to be able to have religious, political, whatever topics,
Conversations.
and we can respect each other. And
Yeah.
I really wish that was possible. And unfortunately, it's becoming more divided because people are becoming more vocal, or they're behind a screen. They're behind something versus facing someone and talking about it. So there's
And
that.
that goes back to the not getting to know somebody.
The bravery.
Yeah.
What I'm feeling with that is the COVID thing, what happened with relationships. But it's going back to the more thing that I talked about earlier. What the guide said was, you've got to have intention on what you want to do on everything. So I think that's why there's a lot of thinking and pausing that's going to need to be done during this next couple of years.
Okay.
That we have to really think about our choices. We have to think about our relationships. More intentional. I think a lot of times people just scatter themselves and try to figure it out versus really be intentional.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be what's going to show up is like, where are your intentions by what are you saying? What are you thinking? Our program solution is all about healing our suffering, digging up, excavating the wounds,
slowing down,
yeah. Really, and to be connected to your guides literally means stopping, meditating, mindfulness.
Yeah.
So are we going to create mindfulness with all of this stuff that's moving so quickly?
So I have a question. So this is the age of divine feminine energy. Like we've talked about it, right? I like your eyebrows. I like when your eyebrows start raising. You like this question?
I guess my Botox is wearing off.
So that, the age of Aquarius
coming through now,
and divine feminine energy, bringing up the divine feminine specifically. What do you see with that? Like, there's been so much talk about that.
Yeah. It's almost like an underground thought, it's still not real vocal. People are not standing up going,
this is
power to the
divine feminine. Yeah.
And as you and I know, in our belief in our history, because you and I love history, is the divine feminine, the goddess, has been powerful before.
Oh yeah.
And through fear and certain patriarchy beliefs and things like that, it was ripped away. The people the women especially that were tortured or killed or imprisoned and stuff like that. So I think it keeps circling in order for it to come back in a different way. I definitely feel that we're right there, like what we're going to do with it, which is probably why a lot of the women's rights have been taken away. So
seriously?
Well, I think when we, I was alive and you weren't, but I was alive when women were legally able to get a credit card or checking account without a man's approval. I think it was in the early 70s, 70, 71.
I was born.
You were born. When women we're in Colorado, this was the first state to be able to have women vote.
Yeah.
Not minorities, but women. And so we look at us little by little getting our rights back from whenever they were taken away, right? If people are like, what are you talking about? We got some recommendations to, but we become a little bit passive that these things have been achieved. We are able to know what to do with our bodies, or we have rights to vote or be in leadership roles and opportunities to run companies and these, in Congress and even running for president, these things have changed. Would we stay passive if
makes sense. Yeah.
So we would
kind of stay where we are.
Stay where you got
unless
what
we get pushed.
Yeah. You should be happy with what we've given you these rights. So we just kind of go along. At least we got these rights to vote. At least we got these rights to be able to decide on our bodies.
Oh, doesn't that just piss you off?
It does. And so if we become passive, how is it going to get us activated again?
Okay.
Take them away. Take away our rights so we become vocal again. Because otherwise
we'll stay right where we are. And just kind of let it slide.
Never thought about that.
Oh, your guides are good.
They are good.
So they're pushing our buttons, is what you're saying.
Yes.
It's on a spiritual level. Our buttons are being pushed.
Are you really going to just sit back and let this happen again. And that's the word I want to remind everybody again,
Yeah.
because this has happened throughout history.
Yeah. It really has. Okay. What about climate change and natural disasters coming in? What do you feel with, like, are we, because we know there's going to be other chaos, and we see what's happening globally with our weather and
I think there's,
but
yeah.
yeah,
So
what do you feel with natural
the
disasters?
the first hit I got with that was Mother Earth is a little pissed off.
Yeah.
If you think about what you just asked me about women,
Yeah, divine feminine, and
yeah, you think about women. Women, don't take us off. Any man that's married to a woman knows there's only so far you can go before we don't take it anymore, right?
Yeah.
Including our sons and
Yeah.
whoever else in our life that goes,
Right.
okay, I think I went too far. Because I think most women are the nurturers. I'm not saying all women. I'm saying there's some women that are not nurturers, but generally speaking, we are. Mother Earth she's a healer.
Yeah.
She takes care of us on every freaking level.
Mm-hmm.
And we treat her, a lot of the world, treat her like crap.
Yeah.
Absolute crap. So, when we look at what we're doing to something that we get to look at the beauty of this planet and what it provides for us. And we pretty much say, F you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's really a kind of aligned with the goddess idea, right?
Yeah,
The divine
is.
feminine. So I think until we pay attention, it will be a little bit more difficult for people. The
Are
other
we
part,
headed towards more extreme climate shifts?
I think part of that is because I'm not putting everyone in one scenario, but a lot of us have lived with, I want something now and I want it to look like this, and we're not thinking about the environment or what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And as what happened in California, and there's been a lot of interviews and podcasts of people saying, I just built it without, and I knew this could happen.
Yeah.
And they're saying, I need to walk back into it with rebuilding it with a whole different consciousness. So how do we change our consciousness if we're not affected by it? We're going to keep doing the same thing. It's like children. If you tell them, you know what, you're going to get in trouble if you keep doing that again, but there's no way for them to understand that you really mean it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking corporal punishment. I'm talking about, we're going to take away your tablet or whatever it is. But I feel like Mother Earth is going, I'm giving you some warnings. When are you going to really listen?
Yeah. Can we go just a little bit longer? Because I know we've been on for a while, but there's a few more questions. Still some.
My guides don't take breaks if they need them.
Perfect. All right. So you brought up consciousness. You brought up higher consciousness, and that's been talk in our home for a long time. With what you teach, with how you coach people in your coaching program. I mean, that is literally how we live our life.
Right.
Even more so now, which we're working on a project that I hope we can bring to light really, really soon. But regarding awakening and the collective consciousness, are we going to see a shift towards a higher consciousness on a global scale? Like, what are you seeing with people actually having more awakening? And I think we see a little bit of that, but then we also don't. Like, maybe we see some people who are like, yes, I am connected. I am trying to be more connected and really connect with my guides and do things differently. But is that going to be more on a global scale? What are we looking at with that shifting?
For me, let's hope so, right?
Right.
The first image I was getting was historical times back to, way, way, way back, of how many times there has been people that have been sort of awake, and then there's been the rulers or who have been stopped on some level. And I mean, we've talked about your ancestors, right? The Aztecs, or but I'm thinking about the Spanish.
Yeah, the Spaniards,
that came over and made everyone to be Christian. Yeah, and did all these things. so there's always been this battle of, fear and control and then a higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And I
And it's always been forced underground because
absolutely
they don't want, so they change the names of things to try to
correct.
do this work underground versus being open with it.
Might hit. And actually, this is interesting. I saw this probably 25 years ago, and I haven't seen this before in a long time. So that's kind of cool. I kept seeing a long time ago the planet with these beams of light throughout the world.
Okay.
And what I was shown then, this is so cool. What I was shown then was the world's going to light up. It's going to be a transformation.
I got chills.
Yeah. And I'm seeing it now. So usually it was because people feel like they don't have any power. They don't have a voice. There's a lot of fear where things begin to really, shift. Sometimes it will, like you said, go underground till it comes back up. So the vision I'm getting is, it's going to happen, but not the way that you and I assume.
Okay.
So, which is really cool because we shouldn't know,
Yeah.
there should be that idea of leaning into something, moving into something without having to control or saying, this is what it's going to look like, because we get attached to that versus the process and what everyone's going to go through. But for me, this is really beautiful because seeing that image again that I haven't seen for probably close to 25 years was what motivated me then, even like, you've got to get out there and let people know there's another way to heal, another way to believe, another way to look. And don't get stuck in this idea of how it should be.
Okay.
Because, I was raised in an environment, it was a very strict religion, and that's good for some people to have that. But for me, there can be other ways to look. So it could be that what's going on, this momentum that's happening within some of us, it's time for that evolution. I was going to say the word revolution, but they're saying, no, it's an evolution.
Okay.
And it's more about people saying, we've got to do something different. And with technology, with things that we're able to communicate across the ponds, across all these waters, across time, that there can be a different version of how we live our lives and how we believe, and not to live in that everyday fear. So even though that we know that our country is changing, that ripple affect others, I don't want to get up every day living in fear.
Right.
I want to be aware, and I want to be cautious, and I want to be curious, but I don't want to be in fear. So,
yeah.
Does that make some sense?
Yeah, but now I have more questions. Maybe I have to ask you those later.
I think we should do a second podcast on this. What do you think?
Well, no, I mean, about it's not going to look like
The
how
way we expect.
think it's going to look.
I get it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I want to know, for me personally, I want to know, are we going the right direction with what we're doing?
Absolutely. But there's a lot of other layers to it.
Okay.
Which we'll certainly talk about, right?
Ooh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us once again on Spirited Straight Talk. But Dana asked me these great questions for how we look into our future for 2025. In the meantime, I hope you go to my website, debsheppard.com. We have a lot of things in there that might be helpful for you as you navigate 2025. So thank you again for joining Spirited Straight Talk.